Do you know what Louis Vuitton and the Copacabana Palace have in common? Both the famous French luxury brand and the traditional Rio Hotel have the same owner, French businessman Bernard Arnault. He is currently the richest man in the world with a fortune of more than $200 billion, or 1 trillion reais at the current exchange rate. In case you don't know him, Arnault is the controlling shareholder of LVMH, the luxury conglomerate that owns famous brands such as Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Tiffany. Bulgari, along with several others. In total, there are 75 brands in various segments of the luxury market, ranging from clothing to champagne and hotel chains. But do you know the story of how Bernard Arnault built this empire? Spoiler, there's a lot of controversy involved, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But first, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Bernard Arnault was born on March 5, 1949, in the city of Roubaix, located in the northern part of France. His journey to becoming the owner of LVMH was quite unexpected and interesting. Unlike what you might assume about a prominent businessman in the fashion world, neither Arnault nor his family had any ties to the industry. His father, Jean Arnault, was involved in the construction sector as a contractor. It was within this field that the young Bernard initially chose to pursue his career. In order to achieve his goals, he decided to enroll in the engineering program at École Polytechnique, which is considered one of the most prestigious colleges globally. Not long after he graduated, in the year 1971, he began his career at Ferrer-Savinel, his father's engineering company. Within a short span of just 3 years, he advanced to become the director of construction. It wasn't long before his father started to transition the company's focus towards the more profitable real estate market. Along with this strategic shift, the company's name was also changed to Ferrinel. In a rapid and remarkable rise, in the year 1977, he became the managing director of his family's business. The following year, after the death of his father, he took over the role of chairman. In 1981, Arnault made the move to the United States with the intention of expanding the family business. During his time there, he encountered the American style of business, which was notably more aggressive and impersonal compared to the practices in France. However, it wasn't until he returned to France 3 years later that Arnault made the definitive decision to pursue the expansion of his business. Thus starts Bernard Arnault's journey in fashion. In the year 1984, a young businessman from France heard something that truly captured his attention and intrigued him deeply. There were rumors going around at that time, suggesting that the French government was actively searching for a buyer for the Boussac Group. This was a conglomerate that was operating within the textile and retail sectors. To provide some context, the French government had been compelled to take control of the Boussac Group after it had collapsed. This collapse was regarded as France's most significant industrial bankruptcy since the war. As he had neither the conditions nor the knowledge to manage a business of this size, the government began to scramble to find a buyer and get rid of the bomb. Knowing this, Bernard Arnault signaled his interest. But if everyone knew that the Boussac Group was a giant conglomerate in terrible financial shape, why was Arnault so interested in the business? The answer is quite simple. Amidst all these nearly worthless companies, there was a true gem, the crown jewel, Christian Dior. Yes, indeed, the renowned French fashion house, established by designer Christian Dior in 1946, was a subsidiary of the Boussac Group. This was because businessman Michel Boussac had financed Dior's initial operations and became a partner in the brand. Even though the group's financial situation worsened during the 80s, Arnault recognized that the Dior brand remained incredibly strong. Arnault then made an offer to take over the Boussac Group for $60 million, with $15 million coming from his family and $45 million from a group of investors. It's worth remembering that at the time, Arnault was still unknown in the French business world, which ended up surprising everyone when he and his group of investors were chosen by the government to take over the conglomerate. As soon as he took control of the Boussac Group, Bernard Arnault began an aggressive restructuring plan, so aggressive that it earned him the nickname the Terminator. That's because in the first few years of his tenure, Arnault laid off around 9,000 employees and sold off almost all of the company's business divisions, which were renamed HX Financial. Despite being bombarded by the French media at the time due to severe cost cuts, Arnault's plan worked, and in a short time, the businessman saved the company from ruin. After selling the loss-making businesses, the gâché financier was left with just two subsidiaries, Dior and the famous retail chain Le Bon Marché. This was only the beginning of Bernard Arnault's rise. And if you're curious about how Louis Vuitton fits into this story, that's exactly what we're going to discuss right now. In the year 1997, while Arnault was still actively engaged in managing the Hachette financial operation, a significant merger occurred, which became a hot topic in French business circles. It was during that year that the renowned French fashion house, Louis Vuitton, along with the drinks manufacturer Moët Hennessy, made the decision to unite their forces as a strategy to shield themselves from a possible takeover. LVMH Moët Hennessy was established. Just to put it in context, at that time, in the 80s, hostile takeovers were becoming increasingly common in the financial market, especially in the United States, where a number of corporate traders began to emerge, basically investors who bought large amounts of shares and took control of the company. As a result, many executives feared that their companies could be targeted by these investors, who in most cases made major changes to company management. In the case of LVMH, this risk was mitigated by the merger between the two French giants. However, other problems began to arise because of this merger. Shortly after the merger, Henri Recamier, who was responsible for turning Louis Vuitton into a global brand, and the CEO of Renessi Currency, began to fall out. What were initially just differences in strategy became unsustainable. A major conflict arose when Recamier discovered Chevalier was negotiating to sell a 20% stake in LVMH to Guinness Brewery. He worried the company would focus more on drinks than luxury goods. That's when Henri Recamier made a critical error. In an attempt to bring an ally into the battle against Chevalier, Recamier invited Bernard Arnault to become a partner in LVMH, as this would guarantee him one more vote on the board of directors. However, it backfired due to an interesting fact. Bernard Arnault brought the proposal to his advisor, a banker from Lazard, to assess if it was a worthy investment. Surprisingly, this was the very same banker employed by Alain Chevalier, who was Recamier's competitor. This banker served as a link between Arnault and Chevalier, who then explained to him the reasons why Guinness should consider investing in LVMH. He then bought LVMH shares via a joint venture with Guinness Brewery. In short, he joined the rival who invited him as a partner. If that wasn't ironic, see what happened next. A few months later, it became clear that Arnault was neither on Recamier's nor Chevalier's side. In a move that shocked the French business community at the time, Bernard Arnault bought so many shares in LVMH that he became the company's largest shareholder and chairman after Recamier's resignation, beating the businessman to the power. Following this controversial episode, where Bernard Arnault proved to be a ruthless businessman, LVMH activated its acquisition machine and bought several luxury brands in the years that followed. Not all were successful. It's important to recall that two failed acquisition attempts caused significant repercussions for LVMH. One was Gucci in 1999, when Arnault purchased a substantial number of shares in the Italian company, only to be surprised when Gucci sought another buyer, Kering, which owns famous luxury brands such as Balenciaga and Yves Saint Laurent. Another case that made headlines was 2010, when Arnault secretly acquired more than 20% of the shares of another luxury giant, Hermès. By using complex derivative contrasts, LVMH managed to build up a huge position in Hermès without having its identity revealed. When the master of the company found out, he took the affair public and said that it was not for sale, causing Arnault to divest himself of all his stock. But putting controversies aside, even without succeeding in acquiring the powerful Gucci and Hermès, Bernard Arnault has persistently continued to purchase numerous companies within the luxury segment. Back in 2003, he successfully closed the acquisition of the renowned Italian company Fendi. Then, 7 years later, he took control of La Samaritaine, which is a significant French department store. In 2011, the billionaire made an announcement about the acquisition through a strategic share deal of the Italian jeweler Bulgari in an operation that was valued at nearly $5 billion. 2 years later, it paid approximately $2.6 billion for the fine wool supplier Loro Piana. In 2016, it further expanded its portfolio by adding the German luggage brand Rimowa. 2 years later, LVMH took control of Belmond, a luxury hotel company that also owns the Copacabana Palace. Bernard has also made significant investments in companies like Netflix, Airbnb, and Spotify, in addition to becoming one of the largest shareholders of Carrefour in 2019. Arnault is also the owner of the newspapers La Parisienne and Les Echos. The French billionaire's latest acquisition, which is the most costly in LVMH's history, was the American jeweler Tiffany, purchased in the year 2021 for a staggering amount of $16.2 billion. To put it differently, LVMH truly operates as an acquisition powerhouse. After decades of building his luxury empire, Bernard Arnault has finally begun to reap the rewards of so many investments. With sales in the luxury market growing more and more in recent years, LVMH recently became the first European company in history to reach the $500 billion mark in market value. Just to give you an idea, in 2022, the company grew by 23% and had a turnover of $86.3 billion. Overall, the total number of LVMH brand stores has significantly increased, jumping from approximately 1,000 stores back in 1999 to over 560 stores by 2022, spanning across 81 different countries. As of today, LVMH stands as a massive entity, employing more than 196,000 people. All signs suggest that this number is expected to keep on growing.